This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Well, it's been a minute.
Yeah, how's everything been going?
You know, so it's funny that thinking back, like we started this podcast almost 3 years ago, right? And so we just hit, I think we're at 158 episodes. So it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, we've had some great guests and great conversations, and I think it's been awesome.
Yes. And I think when we started this, our whole goal with this is to provide, content and value to entrepreneurs, business owners out there, and so it's been enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, and today we're gonna, I think, get into kind of one of the main premises behind this show, and talking about why we share so much of our vulnerabilities, our failures, our what we've learned along the last 23 years of being in business for ourselves, but also bring on guests that are, we always start off with them sharing their story, and then we usually ask questions about, struggles or things they've gone through and overcome.
Yeah.
Because that's really the premise behind this show, is
Right.
to show people, and I think that's the goal in life, is to give back and contribute to others. And the best way you can do that is by sharing your life experience and your journeys, and so this is what this show's about.
Absolutely.
Is about sharing our vulnerabilities.
Today we're talking about your greatest vulnerabilities can be also your greatest strengths. And I know that just recently you came back from a mastermind in Dallas, and you had some takeaways. So I'd love for you to share what your takeaways were from that mastermind and kind of why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, You get in a room with all business owners, and we've been in multiple masterminds. Some of it just been real estate focused, some of it been business focused, and that's kind of where we've been lately, is focused on masterminds that focus on more different industries, different businesses. But no matter which mastermind you get a part of and participate in, a lot of the higher level masterminds, you start in the very beginning, it might be very tactical and what's working, what's generating
how to get my
leads,
business to the next level,
all that
type
stuff.
of thing.
But it always leads to how do we improve our lives, and it gets more personable, and people sharing their struggles, and people, because we're all humans, and I think we forget that, and we're all, no matter what walks of life we come from, no matter what our ethnic backgrounds, our upbringing, all that, we're still all humans, and we all still go through struggles.
Right.
And no matter what income bracket you're at, you still have issues and you still have struggles. There's nothing that can prevent you from that or keep you from that. So, we got into talking a lot about how, and having conversations with the group, and it was a small, intimate group, sharing. We all got into sharing about our failures and weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and once you really master those and overcome them, a lot of times they can be your greatest strengths and your greatest way to help others.
Right.
I think in life we a lot of times we'll hide those or
mask them
because number one, we don't want to be judged, or we don't want people to think we're weak, or we don't want to share a lot of that. And number one, it's hard. Number one, nobody wants to share their weaknesses, and we do that even in, it's funny because we just went through a series of interviews, and even in our interview process, one of the main questions I ask people, I always ask them about their greatest win in their career or personal life. I open that to start off so they can share. Everybody can always talk about their highs, and then I always follow it up with a question about, okay, well, what's your biggest weakness? And the whole reason I ask that question is because I'm looking for humility. I'm looking for people that can
open up and
take ownership and be vulnerable. And I don't look at it as a flaw.
No.
Because I want people to be able to be open.
But most people do, right? Most people, and I mean, we both went through this, early in our careers, where we never want, me personally, I never wanted to share my story. You always used to tell me, hey, why don't you tell people your story? You can help so many people out there. But it's true, like you don't want to feel judged, right? And you go through all these things in your mind of what are people going to think of me if I tell them this? And so then you keep things really surface level. But until you figure that out, and me personally, I didn't figure that out until I was around other groups, masterminds, just like you came from, that were sharing their stories and very open. And I'm like, wow, like these super successful people out here are sharing their stories, right? And they're human, just like you said. Like everybody goes through these problems, right?
I think it's too bad that people don't share more, because I think and it doesn't matter. I think a lot of people think too also that they don't have to be successful to share.
Yeah,
they don't have to be. They don't have to have some big business, or they don't have to have be the boss, or they don't have. They can be just anybody. They can be, like a stay-at-home mom. They could be grandma, or they could be. I'm just saying. I don't know. So I'm trying anybody that that has gone through something, or had a life experience, or gone through a journey, overcome it, and or maybe a flaw or an insecurity, and mastered it, and they can share that and help other people. And that's, so it doesn't matter what walk of life. There's somebody that's probably in a similar scenario, or they're going down, they're walking in the same footsteps where you just maybe overcame, and so you can help them through that journey.
Right.
And that's the biggest way I can emphasize this is, you always hear about, put yourself in their shoes. And a lot of times, if you've never gone through what they're going through, number one, they're never going to fully listen to you, because they don't feel like you can relate to them, because you haven't gone through that. And you can try to put yourself in that situation, but until you've actually gone through it, you never can. And so I think when you have this life experiences and you've walked in their shoes, you can truly help them along that journey, and help them along the way, no matter what it is. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, like business failures, there's bankruptcies, there's failed marriages, there's failed relationships with kids and parents, and like all of that. We all have those stories,
right?
And some of it, I would say some of it's in our control, and the others parts it's totally out of our control.
I agree.
A lot of kids have gone through some really tough things growing up, and hey, maybe they've overcome that. Maybe they've, they didn't follow, they changed the directory of their
narrative, right? Yeah, changing the narrative.
And changed their dynamic in their own personal families. They didn't follow in their same family's upbringing, and follow maybe drugs or abuse or whatever. And overcame that. Now they can share that and help other kids and benefit other people that are maybe going through that same struggle. So
and what about the people that, I mean, they truly want to open up, and they just don't know how to, right? Like, what advice can you give for those individuals that, I mean, they want to open up, but maybe they're not in the right circle, or they don't have confidence in themselves, and so they've almost given up on themselves, right? And that's hard too, because I think that I don't know. What's your thought?
I mean, I think it's going to come natural. I don't. Number one is you got to have the courage
and confidence,
because it's going to put yourself out there when the timing is right. I'm not. I don't believe, because I'm not into social media that much, but I don't believe into like just putting in. There's those people that will just blast all their negative crap all over Facebook or whatever. I don't think that's the message that we're saying here. I think it's more, if it can be on a one-on-one basis, it's more better. I think if you put yourself out there more, you get involved, there's going to be opportunities for you to, and then there's organizations that maybe something that you've gone through that you can participate or give back. And that's the essence of life. And as I'm getting older, like it's more about giving back than making money or that, it's all about how can I contribute and make an impact to other people in their lives? Because that's really what's going to matter in the end of the day. And it doesn't matter about money. You can't go home with it. You can't take it to the grave. So what is it like? How can I maybe change somebody's directory in their life by impacting them and walking them. So, for me, I think I would love to help people with, especially kids with lack of self-confidence, because it's something I've struggled with my whole life, and massive insecurities as a child. And I they're still there. Don't get me wrong, but like how you've overcome them, and how I've been able to, run a business, present in front of people, present and persuade and do all these things that we've done in life. But it's how I overcame all of that.
And I think a lot of what you went through too, like self-awareness, right? Like you were aware that you had these insecurities and these struggles, and you constantly put in the work to improve yourselves, right? Whether it's reading books, podcasts, like surrounding yourself with others, like you put in the work to overcome those insecurities, right?
And I think a lot of it's going to take you, again, number one, the person that's helping, it's going to take courage for you to share your journey and yours with other people. And but at the same time, the person that's going through it that you're helping, they're going to have to take some courage and some strength. And a lot of what I think you and I have overcame a lot of our vulnerabilities and weaknesses is because we've just put ourselves in very uncomfortable situations on purpose.
Stretched us. Almost all of our, struggles and insecurities, like we put ourselves out there. Yeah. It's like public speaking for me personally, that wasn't my strength, right? But I kept going out there, doing it, failing over and over again. And, eventually you get better. Yeah. Right.
And yes, I think one thing that you had overcome, was you were really struggling with how you were going to be perceived. And if you showed any sign of weakness or any vulnerability, and I think that goes back to childhood, because if you showed vulnerability or weakness, I think in your life, people would take advantage of that.
Right.
And so you never wanted to show it, because if you show that, I think maybe people that, not that you came from the streets, but like, what I mean? That's the best way to describe it. Like, if you show that weakness, then you're going to, people will bully you, take advantage, be strong.
I mean, like you said, since early on, I had to put this mask on. Like I was this tough chick because I didn't want people to think otherwise, right? But yeah, I mean, you do put on a mask.
And so when you put yourself out there and do expose, yes, you're going to get people that will, you're going to benefit a lot of people and you're going to help a lot, but don't get me wrong, there will be the naysayers and the people that will try to bring you back down. And
but you have to have the confidence, to overcome that regardless of what people say. I mean, I've had it too, being a woman and a business owner. I've had family tell me that you're too pretty, like people aren't going to take you serious, right? Yeah. And it gets in your head. It can get into your head, right? And you can doubt yourself because these people don't believe in you or don't have confidence in you, but you have to have confidence in yourself.
Yeah. We had family that judged you just based on your looks, saying like you're going to be like, who's going to take you serious? You're just some girl that just, trots around or whatever, posts pictures, like who's going to take you serious? And that's cruel, number one, but and harsh, but that's
but you
have
to believe in yourself.
Correct.
That you're what is your why? Like, why are you doing what you're doing, right? And how are you going to make an impact?
Right. And so I bet you there's been, with your book, with podcasts, with you sharing, with you speaking, you've had numerous amounts of women come to you and say, hey, like, Joni, you give me courage, you give me strength, you give me
absolutely
you motivate me to and as a mother, as a business owner,
absolutely.
All that. And so I think as many people, it's there's far more people that you've impacted than the naysayers that are the naysayers.
And that's why you can't overthink it. Like just be what I say is just be yourself, right? Like, if you want to, whatever you put out there, just be yourself.
Yeah.
People respect that.
And that was, again, going back to why we started this show, and one of the main reasons was for, yes, we wanted to share about our businesses, we wanted to help others, but the main reason was for us to make an impact on people's lives that listen to the show, and share with them like, okay, and Joni doesn't like when I say this, but like we're not special.
I don't like when you say
but we're not.
it's
we're
not
not
that I don't
special.
like it.
Yeah, we're special in a way, but meaning we're not like
I 100%
we don't
agree.
have any of these unique abilities or like
I mean, I have unique abilities.
I'm not.
No, but you're right. I mean, we're not the smartest people, but we put in the work,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, and we've done the things,
a lot
but
of the things that
we've
you're
overcome.
right,
Yeah.
and a lot of things that others are, going through right now.
Yeah.
We have gone through them, and so we're giving back to like this is what we went through. This is how we overcame it.
Correct.
To try to help you.
Yeah,
along the way,
and share with our mistakes so that you don't make those
same ones,
and then bring on guests that we feel can benefit you and motivate you because there's not Joni and I haven't walked in. You've heard some of our guests, whether it be drugs, whether it be all the way to
losing somebody,
lose a spouse, to
a child,
a child, or to somebody that manages 4,000 doors or owns 4,000 multifamily. Like the spectrum of everything. We haven't walked in all those people's shoes so that you can hear their journey, you can hear what they've had to go through to get there. If that's what you want,
right? And I believe you can learn from something from somebody, anything from somebody, right? Like one thing I've learned so much from just our guests, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the mastermind that I was a part of, one of the gentlemen in the room, he got to sharing a lot, and he even went and spoke in front of the whole group at the end because it was heartfelt because we were talking, sharing, and going over all this stuff personal, and he's sold a business, he's starting a new one, and he's much. He's an older gentleman, so he's been in his career a lot longer, and he's towards the end of his business career. But he was sharing, we got into talking about children a lot, and that's one thing that I do when I go to these groups, because I have younger children. A lot of times there's people there with people that have already gone through what I've gone through.
And you're learning from them.
And I ask them a lot of questions. And so, we got talking about children and raising our children, and a lot of these same lines that we're talking about, we as business owners or people that have had success we try to, I think at times, shield our children from having to maybe experience what we went through growing up, or we want to give them a better life, and we think we're doing always the right thing for
you don't want them to struggle. You don't want them to see the same struggles that you had growing up, which I did the same thing. I don't want them to, go through the same things. I had a job at 15 years old working at Taco Bell, and but we don't want them to have the same struggles.
Correct.
A lot of times.
And so we sometimes shield them, and there was multiple stories, where people had some really rough upbringings, and then they're like, well, I don't want
to go through
that. And like this gentleman, he grew up on a farm as growing up, and so like when you're on I've never been on a farm, so I haven't walked in those shoes, but this is the story. I can totally understand where he's coming from. As a child,
he had to work.
He had to work, and so they got up, and there was work for an hour and a half in the morning every morning, like feeding the animals, cleaning up, whatever. And then at night there was always an hour and a half of work. So 3 hours a day, he was working 7 days a week, and then he'd still go to school and sports and everything else. But he didn't want his kids to have to experience that hardship it was tough. And so like he just gave his kids an easy life. And it's kind of, he had two different marriages. So he had the first marriage, his kids grew up where he hadn't been successful in his business yet. So he was like, he didn't have a choice. He couldn't give him everything. But then once he had a lot of success with his business, his second marriage with his two other children, he gave him everything. He gave him everything. Yeah. He never said no. And he was very open and vulnerable. But, the next thing he shared was that one of the main reasons was because, and it always goes back to your childhood, and we've had several people on the show talk about this. He struggled with rejection, and so there's two things of feeling. Number one, that was fueling all this was he didn't want to give his kids he didn't want them to struggle or have to go through what he did and everything he wanted to give them. But the other part was he didn't want to have to ever feel rejection from his children, because that's something that it was an inner thing that was driving a lot of his decisions that he should have, and he didn't realize it at the time until later. But so he would just give them everything because he didn't want to feel that rejection. But his biggest takeaway was like, you know what, guys, like we have to tell our children no. He said, even if you can do it, even if it's like our children have to hear no, because there's going to be a lot of no's in life, and like they can't go into this world thinking that just everything's
going to be handed to them. Yeah, like, oh, it's all right, like, you know, I don't have to work for it. I'm going to be given it. And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Yeah. Right? People are just not motivated to do anything.
They're getting the workforce.
Yeah, in the workforce.
Yeah. It's like we said, we've been on some interview. It's been amazing, like some of the things that people ask and their motivation and their anyways, without getting too into it or breaking any employment laws or saying too much, but it's just the mentality in today's society. It's really it's not healthy.
That's scary though. It's scary to think like where it's headed, right?
Yeah. And so
what are we teaching our children? So
for Joni and I, we're like really listening to all this, and that's why I ask so many questions when I go to this group with our children, because I'm trying to do. Our kids are super spoiled. Don't get me wrong, but we're trying to figure out like, okay, how can we? There's a balance, you know, and how can we teach them hard work, and how can we teach them not to be entitled, you know, and that now everything's going to come to them easily, and they have to work for things, and they have to save, and they have to do, hold off, you know, and maybe wait for something to get a bigger reward, delayed gratification, and teach them that because it's going to be so life beneficial later to them in life.
I agree, and we communicate a lot, and our kids, you know, and we don't tell them everything, but I mean they know when we struggle, when we have struggles, right? And we do that on purpose because we want them to also see that, you know, there are struggles, right? We don't want them to think that everything is perfect,
and
right?
Easy.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to this whole concept that we've been talking about today. Was just, it went back from talking about us, but then to our children, and it's just that because you take away all these like entrepreneurs in the room and a lot of our guests and everything else, it's like, you know, their stories and their journeys is what made them who they are. And it drove them. And if they had an easy life, or they didn't go through that life experience, I don't know if they would be where they are today, you know, because they might not have that motivation. They might not. And so it's interesting to see, you know, and then if we give our kids the total opposite, or they don't have to go through that.
Yeah. You know, where they're
going to be.
Something that kind of hit me was when you were telling this story, when he came back, was wasn't his son there during that time?
Well, so that there was in the middle of the week, there was a guest speaker, a great guest speaker and super entertaining. But he was asking questions about like, I forgot what the question was exactly, but it was
what are you struggling with?
What are you struggling with right now? Yeah, because this particular entertainer had overcome a lot to get to where he is today. Right. So he was asking people like, what's your why? What's your struggle? What are you overcoming? And he went to his son, who happened to be there just for that day, just to hear the guest speaker, and he already knew before he even asked it what his son's answer was going to be, because he knew, and it was that. Well, I don't know. I've never had to struggle in life. Everything's come really easy to me in life. That's the way he responded in front of, 100 people, and the father was just like in shock, and just that he was that comfortable and open to tell that to 100 people in the room that he's never struggled. Life's been pretty easy, and like he really doesn't have like that.
Well, and he said, and what he said was that if the one struggle I have is that I struggle to keep motivated.
Yeah, that was his struggle. He said, if I have one, it's because like I struggled, to persevere and to keep motivated, because I don't like it. I don't have to. And so it's like wow.
That was eye opening. When you came home, I was like, holy cow, like. wow, like we need to be doing something different.
Yeah. And so that, as a father, I think he felt, he didn't say this, so I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but I think it hurt him. And it hurt that, like, maybe I should have done something. And that's why he was addressing the room, because he was like, hey guys, I should have said no more.
Yeah.
I should have taught them some struggle lessons along the way. I gave them everything they wanted, but
maybe not working the farm and as hard as I did, but teaching them something along the way. Yeah.
So that was awesome. So I hope you guys got something out of this today. I hope you have some takeaways. I hope it just gets you to think and gets you to open your mind, and I hope it opens some people out there to share their journey and their struggles and vulnerabilities, because I think if you've overcome those, you can benefit so many people out there in the world that are struggling with the same thing you've already gone through and conquered. So love you all, and appreciate everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
See you next week, guys. See ya.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolf'sDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.